bird on a tree. I'm just sitting here, I got time, it's clear to see. From up here, the world seems small. We can sit together, it's so beautiful, you and me. We meant to be in the great outdoors, forever free. Sometimes you need to go and take a step back to see the truth around you. From a distance you can tell. You and me, we're meant to be in the great outdoors, forever free. You and me, meant to be in the great outdoors, forever free.
Hi and welcome to Catagania. It's Swan here. So as you saw at the beginning, I just gave you a look around my messy craft room before I installed my small camera overhead, and I opened up my Happy Craft Challenge upcycled book, and I have been just layering washi tape. So I've got quite a bit of washi tape that's that is in the colour scheme that was provided for this month's mood board, and I'm just sticking it down randomly across the pages. So this will take a little while, so sit back and I shall be back in a minute. So I sped the section up to 10 times, and this is at 4 times. Here I'm adding some tissue paper that I had previously stamped on, and I'm using some decoupage glue to paste it down. So I'm actually adding quite a bit, as you can see, and I'm just randomly placing them where it feels right, I suppose, is probably the option that I'm using here. And I'm just covering up, which will dull back some of the colours, but will also add a little bit more dimension with the stamping that is on this tissue paper. So you have to be very careful with tissue paper, as if you go over it too much, like I did just there, you actually rip it as it's wet. So I'm just layering some more on it and just building up some extra layers over the top of the background there, and again tearing some more. So just be very careful with the brush you use and just work it until you're happy with it without too much tear. And if you've got it wet enough, the tissue paper goes on quite easily. So I'm quite happy with that. So I'm just going to dry this off here and get it to touch stage. Now that's all dry, I'm going to place on my gel plates some white dimension paint from Montmartre. I'm just going to use a spatula and I'm going to just spread it over the page to, one, give it some more layering, a bit more texture, and again push back some of the colours and some of the black from the actual tissue paper that I've placed on there. So this is, I don't normally do it like this, but I thought, well, I'll give it a go and see how it comes up, and I was really happy with the effect. So just giving it a dry off here, so to go to the next stage, so that it doesn't merge too much with the colours I'm about to bring in. So I'll just dry this off and I'll be back in a second. So I've just gone into my acrylic drawer and I've just pulled out some orange and some red, which are also tube dimensions, and again I'm using the spatula to spread it out and give me some texture and some randomness with this colour. I found this red to be more a pinky tone rather than the yellow tones that I was after for the page. I'm also bringing in some extra white to dull back some of the orange, but to also again add more texture. Also got some yellow acrylic and spreading it out to add some of that yellow that is on the mood board. So I'm just mixing these with the spatula and getting a look that I'm after. So now I've got some brown, and I thought what I'll do is I'm actually going to add some circles on the page. Now, as you know, when I'm doing my work, it just comes to me as I'm doing it. So that's what I decided I would do, is just grab an old roll from, I think it's actually from some tape, and I've created some circles using the brown. And now I'm just going to, with my finger, add some white to the center to give some illusion of difference with the actual circles that are on the page. And it doesn't matter that I've actually mixed some brown in, as it will blend, give it a bit more blending with the actual background tones. So with this, now it's very much a guess what am I going to do next type of thing. So what I thought I'd try to do is, using a baby wipe, is try to pull some of the paint from the background. I found it was too dry and it wasn't actually pulling back what I was actually after. So what I decided to do was add a little bit more colour, and I grabbed the yellow, and I'm actually using a sponge and sponging it through the numbers here to add the dimension of the numbers that I am actually after. So I'm actually placing the numbers on the left hand side of the circles. So I'm also now going to grab another stencil, and I grabbed the honeycomb, and I'm mixing some white, and it didn't really pop very well, so I thought, okay, so what other colour can I use? So I grabbed the dusky pink from Kay's Craft, and I added that in on the right hand side of the circles to add that dimension, and it actually kind of merged it, I thought, quite well. So now I'll just give that another dry, and I'll be back in a second. So now that's dry, I decided I wanted to bring those numbers out a lot more than what they were. So I'm actually going to grab my blending tool that has the black, and I'm going to grab the black archival ink, and I'm going to dab or just slightly blend it onto the background to give some, to highlight those numbers a little bit more. So as you see, I've done it in different strengths of colour, so I've actually made it heavy in some areas and lighter in others, just to give it a mix of texture. As you can see, I actually hold the tool rather funnily at times. It's only because it actually hurts my hand to use this particular tool, but it does work the way I'm doing it, and just allows me to push it down onto the ink more and blend a little bit easier on the actual tiles, on the stencils, sorry. So now I'm going to grab the coffee coloured archival ink, replacing the foam at the top, and just trying to get a bit of colour, difference of colour there. It kind of worked, but I wasn't actually happy with the result. I think I might need to re-ink that particular pad to give myself the colours I'm after. I could have used Distress ink, but because it actually activates with water, I've got to be very careful with that. So I grabbed one of the little birdie ink sprays I have in orange, and I'm just splattering it around the page just to give it a little bit more colouring and a little bit more texture, and just kind of blending in some of the areas. And as you just seen, I've actually found the archival ink which had actually fallen on the ground and I hadn't realised, which is why I was using the small stamp set. So I've kind of vanished somewhere. Not sure where I went. So I'm just going to pause it here and come back. Oh, so here I am. I've returned. I think I actually went and had a coffee break and forgot to turn the camera off. So I'm just mixing up some old white that had dried up into my jar that I use, and I'm trying to decide what splatters to do. So I ended up using the Tipex and just adding some white splashes across the page. Kind of blends and merges, brings out some tones. It's not totally in your face, but it's just there. So now I'm thought, well, I need a different colouring on there, so I've made up a grey paint, and using a stencil I cut out on my silhouette of little crosses, I'm actually using the dabbing tool and adding them to the page just to kind of drop the black back a little bit, but also bring it forward. It's a kind of a trick of the eye and adds another dimension as well. So I'm just going to using the thinner white paint just to highlight the circles and bring them forward again after the splashes that I placed on the board. So now I'm going to decide exactly what I want, and I'm thinking I'm going to go butterflies and words, but it's a case of finding the words that I'm after. I wanted this to be as simple a page as I could for my last one, just as I know this would actually be quite easy for anyone to create. It's using up some washi tape that you may have. As you can see, it would only be very barely visible in the background when you're looking really closely, but it's actually adding texture more than colour now. And so I've just going through the envelope of the vellum sticker butterflies that I purchased from Wise Old Owl, and I'm placing these on the page, but I decided that the circles weren't quite obvious or quite how I wanted them, so I'm actually going to, using a Posca pen, I'm going to go around and draw the circles using the same stamp that I used previously. I did find that the stamps on the right hand side were closer together than the ones on the left hand side, which was a shame, but at the same time there's no wrong to it, it's just the way the page ended up. So then I just thought I'd add a line just to kind of add a point of difference and probably bring them forward in the case that they are like baubles hanging. And I thought and because of the fact that I'd done the circle using the Posca pen, I actually then ended up with a gap around the edge of where it actually hadn't already been painted. So I'm just filling them in with the Posca pen and going over the area just a little bit with the Posca paint just to blend that in. I've just taken that back a little bit using a wet nappy wipe. So once I've dried all that, I'm going to work out exactly where I'm placing these vellum sticker butterflies, and I'm going to put them one wing into the circle and one wing out, so they stick quite nicely onto this page. Normally in the past I've probably cut around and actually done a little bit more fussy cutting on them, but I actually thought they blended very well on this. And of course the last one was the one that was the hardest to get the backing off. So those particular butterflies really, I thought, represented the colour. So here I'm adding some words from Marimi Small Arts. Now in hindsight I should have placed them fully in the circle, not off the side like I did with the butterflies, but because the paint was still damp underneath I couldn't move them afterwards. So I had to come in with my gel pen and actually write over the lettering that was on the coloured section so that it was legible when looking at it. At the moment you can't see that, but in the pictures at the end you'll be able to see what I meant by that. So now I'm adding some detail to the butterflies randomly, adding some white dots, lines, just doing some doodling just to add a bit more. Now the other thing I could have done if I wanted to spend a lot more time on it is actually shadowing the circles on the actual right hand side and including the lines down, the shadowing on the butterflies. That could have also been added to add a lot more depth to the page, but I was actually quite happy with the flattened version of this, so I decided not to do the three-dimensional of it. But I've actually added a few things, gone over some numbers, gone around some of the hexagons from the hive stencil, and now I'm going to come in with the archival black, do some more doodling around the butterflies, but I'm also going to doodle around the circles. I probably should have done that before I added the stickers, and actually doing some freehand around the butterflies. So that's just a loose circle scribble around them just to give them a little bit more life and dimension. So with that I'll do another line around the edges, and I'm actually going around 3 times quite loosely around to give it that, and just a couple of squiggles along the lines there. Sign my name cuppa, grab my stamp, and basically that is the page done in my mind. So I think the only thing I felt was missing was some black splashes, so trying to be careful and not going over too much, I'm adding some black splashes by holding down some tissue paper to hold it, and as you see I actually got some on one of the butterflies. Typical Murphy's Law. So in hindsight probably should have been done earlier on in the process, but I think I quite slightly fixed it up. I added the details back onto the butterfly that I wiped off with the actual nappy wipe, and just adding some extra dots with the white Posca pen. I'm going to dry all that off now. And while I'm drying it off, I'm just looking to see if there's anything else that it will need. It doesn't need any more depth, doesn't need any more wording, doesn't need anything more on my personality. And so what I did is I grabbed another gel pen, which is actually a glitter gel pen, and I just added a little bit of shine to the page. It's more going to be visible for the person looking directly at the page rather than myself, through the photos. So that's me for December 2019, the Happy Craft Challenge mood board. I'd like again to thank Megan for accepting me on the team, and I wish the team good luck for the next 6 months that are there. And I'm just going to take some back step and take a little bit of pressure off my life at the moment, but all's good. It's just this weather has been hitting me a little bit harder than I expected. So thank you for following me on my Happy Craft Challenge. Please have a look at the playlist, which has all the projects that I produced for as the design team member, and enjoy, and don't forget, happy crafting. Bye.